All right, my computer says it's 7 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order and mute everyone and ask that everyone join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to tonight's meeting. At present, we have 10 attendees joining us tonight. I'd like to thank all of them for joining us and welcome them to the May 24th meeting. The first order of business is the minutes of our May 10th meeting. Were there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, could I have a motion that they be approved as written?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by trustee Baskin. Is there a second? I think you're still muted, but I believe I saw trustee Raymond make a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Next order of business is mayor announcements. I'm pleased to announce that New York State has opened up the Brownfield Opportunity Area program this year. You'll recall that we approved applying to that program last year and hired Lisa Nagel to write the grant, and then last year's program was canceled. So I've alerted Lisa that we're back in business and asked her to proceed. Applications are due July 30th. And I expect a draft to be posted on our website by late June. And we'll hold a public hearing on that draft at our July 12th board meeting. Number two, with the new CDC guidelines and New York State regulations, Village Hall did reopen to the public last Monday. So we're back to business as usual in Village Hall. The library is also working on their reopening plan. I'm not sure if they're completely open at this point or not.
They have been completely open for months. Yeah, several months. I mean, everybody's wearing masks and social distancing, but they're open.
Okay. I received a retirement letter from Jimmy Regis effective May 31st. I'd like to thank him for his many years of service to the village. And I would also note for the board's information that this leaves us with 4 vacant positions in DPW. So far, we have advertised 3 times, but we have had no luck in finding a suitable candidate or getting anyone on board. Unfortunately, if we can't fill some of these slots, we're going to be awfully short-handed for the summer work season, and it's possible we may have to consider contracting out some of our summer projects to outside firms because of insufficient in-house labor. But we'll advertise one more time and see if we have any better luck. Fourth, I received notice from New York State that our grant application for wastewater infrastructure engineering was not funded again this year. That's unfortunate. And finally, our playground is almost ready to open. DPW has been working on fixing all the problems down there. We have a playground inspector coming on Thursday. And if that person, unless that person finds other things that need work before we can open, we'll plan to open it for this weekend. So that'll be open to the public. That's it for announcements tonight. That brings us to old business. On, let's see, April 26th, the board adopted guidelines for outdoor dining in the village this summer. Last week, I received a request from Trustee Raymond that we put that on the agenda for additional discussion tonight. So I'll turn it over to Trustee Raymond.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts on this are, since the recent CDC guidance that was adopted by the state, basically stating that if people want to be inside without masks, they can be inside. And basically restaurants are going to be operating almost at full capacity. Is there a need to do any additional seating outside, given the fact that, you know, you can basically sit inside without any issues as long as you're vaccinated? So I kind of wanted to get feedback from the board to see what they thought. I mean, it doesn't seem that it's really necessary anymore, is it?
Well, we said that restaurants with parking lots could use those lots at their discretion, and that as long as there was at least a 4-foot wide clear pedestrian way left on the sidewalk, other restaurants could put a couple of tables out if they wanted to. I know a few restaurants have told me they plan to do that. The only one on Front Street that turned out to be interested in using the parking lane was next door. Everybody else was happy just putting a table or two on the sidewalk.
Are we talking about not allowing tables on the sidewalks, or, you know, because we've basically been allowing that, although it's not per code, for quite some time pre-COVID, and I do believe it's an attraction for people visiting the village to be able to sit outdoors and dine. But we do need to, you know, make it be something that you get a permit for, and that you follow the rules and allow, you know, that clear passage for pedestrians. But
Yeah, my thoughts were simply that if they want to do sidewalk dining, that's fine, because that was something they were doing before the pandemic. Obviously, they need to provide a pedestrian travel way on the sidewalk alongside the tables that needs to be 5 feet wide. It can go down to 4 feet if there's some sort of permanent obstruction, like a tree or a pole, for that small area. But other than that, as long as they can provide that and they can put sidewalks on their table or tables on the sidewalk. I was more talking about expanding and taking up all of the sidewalk, and then, you know, there was discussion about making the pedestrian path go down into the parking lane and back up. I just don't think we need any of that. So
in essence, suggesting that we just eliminate the part about Front Street and leave everything else the way we said it on April 26th. Is
yeah,
that correct?
yeah, basically.
Any other thoughts?
well, I mean, if, you know, the restaurant finds it advantageous to, you know, utilize the parking space, and they don't have to make the pedestrians go around that, you know, and I'm not sure, I think you were going to check with the liquor authority what, you know, you need in order to serve liquor in the parking spaces, some sort of barrier, I believe.
They can't do that.
Okay, I mean, they're doing it now in Saratoga, so I'm wondering how they're managing it, because I think, you know, they're got tables with the concrete barriers around them and a parking space. I mean, it's a question of whether we want to assist our restaurants in serving more customers, you know, to the detriment of a parking space or two. That's really the question.
Yeah, it would be 3 parking spaces in front of next door.
Mhm.
I mean, I get what you're saying, Shawn, but I also think, you know, we approve something like that, we approve the parking space use, and I think it can work for some of the other places where it's in a parking lot, because people just like to eat outside in the summer. It's a nice thing to do. So I guess you know, I see some difficulty in having approved it and now, you know, rolling it back if people have made some plans.
I'm reading the motion, and the way the motion reads in the minutes is, of course, I don't remember specifically, but it says, motion made allowing restaurants to put tables on their sidewalks, leaving a 4-foot wide of unobstructed pedestrian pathway and in their parking lots at their discretion from May 1st to October 1. So it's not really their parking, like that's a little vague. You know, some restaurants do have their own parking lots, but I wouldn't consider that street their own parking lot.
I mean, the parking spaces in front of them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's actually it's public,
Right.
It's
So the,
public parking.
so we probably need to revisit that anyway, if we're gonna allow, I don't mind if the sidewalk can be open and pedestrians have a straight line access. I think that is ideal. It would be ideal if they paid at least a good percent, if not all, of whatever the village cost is to put the barriers up, if it's only one, since we're not really doing it as a village-wide service, but really it's catering to one owner. You know, I don't mind catering to the owner, but the cost should at least be shared, I think, in that case, through the permitting fee. But I'd be okay with that. I have to say, I wish I had a better sense of what the feeling is among the local residents. You know, I wish we had all seen the survey and then all seen the results and maybe gotten a better sampling of people. I was rereading the minutes from last time, and it actually looked like the majority of respond, like 8, wasn't a lot of people. I don't know if they are residents or business owners, actually wanted some closure of Front Street, you know, during the summer. Only one restaurant wanted to use the space, but a number of people did want some reduced traffic on that street. I wouldn't vote to reduce traffic without a plan in place of how do we use that extra space. You know, there's no point changing that unless we knew exactly how we take advantage of it, which we could do.
Yeah, the only issue we have now is, as the mayor just stated, we are woefully short-staffed at DPW.
Yeah.
So if we are going to do something, it's got to be once,
Right.
and then in October, take it down.
Right.
Right.
The closure required extreme effort on their part, and because it had to be open, closed, open, closed, open, closed. That's it. I just don't think we can do that.
That's a good point, because in the minutes it said the 8 people wanted it closed or partly closed for 3 days a week. So that would be that open close scenario. Yeah.
Right. And also knowing who responded, you know, residents complaining about parking on Front Street. Well, they're not supposed to park on Front Street. So, you know, they can complain about it. Business is another.
So Liz, if you have an apartment on Front Street, you're not allowed to park on it?
You shouldn't, it's 2-hour parking.
Is the whole street 2-hour parking?
In the business area, yeah. So it's not there for long-term parking. It's for short term for visitors.
Well, in addition to the stuff that Trustee Baskin read, Trustee Cormos presented us with 3 drawings showing various permutations of Front Street, and we approved version number 1, I think it was, which was to make Front Street one-way and to close the parking lanes. And I said at the last meeting, after discussing with all of the restaurants on the street, that it didn't look like that part was going to be necessary because none of the restaurants wanted to use
Right.
it.
There's no sense. Yeah.
option one was keeping 2 lanes of traffic. I think option 2 was 1 lane, and option 3 was closing the block from Spring to Bath Street. So,
Well, then it was option 2 that we adopted because it was the one-way.
yeah, but we don't need it unless more restaurants want to do it, then we can consider. But, I think the way we have it now, why don't we, try it and, see,
Try what? What's it?
try, letting next door kitchen use their parking spaces as part of their dining area. If they can't serve alcohol, then they can't, that's their choice. If the law doesn't allow them to, but if they wish to use it for space and that no ramps, clear passage through. And it's, we'll do it once, and if it doesn't work, we'll take it down, and they can't,
But I do agree with Ben also, and with what Shawn is saying about DPW is I don't think there's any problem if they're going to use it for them to, pay for the cost of the setup and the takedown.
oh, I agree. I think they,
And that, and then also, it'll give them, then they have to make the business decision whether or not it's within their interest to do that.
yeah, I think they should pay for putting it up, and frankly, if there are more restaurants who want to do it, they should also. We shouldn't bear the expense where.
And anybody who's going to do it has to apply obviously in advance. Right now, if we're going to do this, we're only approving 1 restaurant, correct?
Correct.
Or do they want the Front Street Deli also?
No, they changed their mind.
Only next door.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
I guess while we're on this subject, I'm just going to add that I was down there last week and there was some tables out on the street. And again, I know we're still drafting the legislation, but there was walkways that had tables on both sides.
Mhm.
And there was also walkways that were clearly not even 4 feet. I mean, again, if we're going to follow DOT standards, it's 5 feet with 4 feet allowed where there's some sort of permanent obstruction. A table is not a permanent obstruction. So, that's a movable obstruction. So,
But we have tree wells and trees all up and down front, so.
right. So, I mean, maybe we need to put tree grates in those so that they can be used as, part of the traversable path. But I guess where I'm going with this is, how are we enforcing this? Because clearly it's not being followed.
Well, doesn't the building inspector have responsibility?
Yeah, but at first we have to give the building inspector some parameters. We haven't, we've done this where we've, done something with the parking space in front of next door kitchen and bar and made front, provisions for this dining on Front Street, but we have not adopted, that's one of the things we're talking about tonight, right? We have not adopted the rules. And you're right, Shawn, there are at least 3 that I can think of. One on the side of Lau Street. There's a whole setup now. It's got an awning, a new awning. People have moved out into the sidewalk, and Front Street has done it. Next door has done it, and Henry's, at least that I know of, that where they're in the public space. But to be fair, we have to, make the rules and then have them enforced.
Shawn, on the width of the pedestrian passageway, is that a law or a guidance
Well, it's a standard.
standard?
So take that as you will. anything designed or built is supposed to follow those standards to provide that much. I don't believe that it's a law, that obviously you can have non-standard features, but given the fact that the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee has really promoted pedestrian modality, I just think it's just a good idea that, you know, we try to follow it. I mean, if we're gonna allow 4 feet, then so be it, allow 4 feet. But again, there's locations where there's not 4 feet clear path.
I
I think it's doable though.
as a minimum.
Yeah, when I was walking down there the other day, there were sections that were not maintained at 4 feet, but they were close to 4 feet. And I think it's doable if attention is paid to keep it
Right.
basically right at 4 feet. And you're right, building inspector should come through. I'm ready to vote on the Revenue Advisory Committee language. I had just some minor comments or thoughts on it, but I don't know if we want to consider that tonight.
That's on the agenda, 2 more items down.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess then it sounds like we should probably move forward to that, and that resolves a lot of these issues.
Yes, I think it will.
Well, I mean, the only real issue that I'm hearing is we've already got the concrete barriers for next door. We were prepared to put them in the street earlier this week when I got the request to put this on the agenda. And I told DPW not to put them out because we were gonna talk again this week. So the question is, do I put the barriers out around next door? And the other issue, of course, as we've discussed before, is that they can't serve alcohol in the street. They can serve alcohol on the sidewalk. So their preference by far would be for the pedestrians to go around in the parking lane inside the barrier that would separate them from the traffic to maximize the number of tables that they can
I
have service.
I was reading the State Liquor Authority regs online, and it was not obvious to me that they could not serve drinks on the street. I don't know if you got that definitively somewhere. It looked like Saratoga Springs, they were serving the same things on the street that they were serving on the sidewalks. So
They
I don't
just
know.
have to have a barrier on the space, I believe, which
Well,
could, not a concrete barrier, but a fence.
Well, even that, I was looking for that because we've mentioned the fence a number of times. They don't talk of the SLA that does not say that you have to have a fence or barrier. And in fact, in Saratoga, there's plenty of tables with no barriers at all along Broadway. And so I'm not sure it's not a bad idea. Obviously, we need a barrier in the street from the cars. But it could be just up to us if we want to have a barrier or not. It would impact the 4-foot rule if you have another, thing in the sidewalk in addition to a table. But I don't know that it's required to have a barrier, and I also don't know that we cannot have drinks in the street.
Well, Governor Cuomo's executive order last year specifically waived the rule against serving alcohol on public property.
Right. So maybe I was looking at something that's effective until June 5th, but you're saying we can anticipate after June 5th, it'll go back to the way it was and you can't do it on the street again.
Yeah, I thought it was May 28th, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's really the restaurant's issue. That's not ours. You want to use your parking spaces, that's fine. You pay for the barriers and you can use it. And
I mean, I don't like the idea of redirecting pedestrians out onto the parking lane and then back on.
no,
If they
I-
want to use the parking spaces for tables. And frankly, where do we know the public right of way ends? Is it right at the sidewalk curb line? Is it farther in? Because if we're saying they can't do it on public property, if we own part of the sidewalk, then they can't do it there either.
Yeah, the assumption is that they own the sidewalk and we own the street.
Mhm.
Okay.
I agree. You know, if we're gonna do the barriers and they want to use the parking spaces in the street, that's fine. But I do not think that we should be forcing pedestrians out into the street so they can go around the tables. I mean, you know, if they want to use it, fine. If it works for them and they can figure out a way to do it, fine. But I really don't, I don't want to do, you know, the way it is now where there's space enough for people to walk is fine, but I don't want to redirect people out into the street with ramps and all of that. That just gets too much.
Is there a third voice in favor of that scenario?
I think the pedestrians should not be burdened with, you know, going around and going basically into the street to go around. You know, where are they gonna go? On the outside of the barrier? Then they're gonna be right in the traffic lane.
No, they're gonna go inside the barrier. The barrier is separating the parking lane from the travel lane.
Well, then they're, yeah, I don't think,
I think it's all right. Saratoga has the sidewalk integrity and has some tables against the building and then other tables in the street, and it seems to work fine.
Yeah, yeah, you know, and if all else fails, they can make it the kiddie table. I mean, really, not like at Thanksgiving and not serve liquor. You know, it's, as Liz said, or Ben said, it's like how they configure it is really up to them. So it's just,
yeah.
All right, well, just to be clear for the minutes, could I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
You want to
Any
restate?
motion.
That motion, what we just said.
You have sufficient language for the minutes, Madam Clerk?
I don't. That was too many people talking and saying different things. I'd prefer that it be worded how they want it in the minutes, please.
How about that we want to maintain sidewalk, a traversable sidewalk path of a minimum of 4 feet
Right,
along the curb line of the sidewalk?
no, just along the sidewalk because of the tree wells.
Yeah,
I am not okay with it going between tables. I'm not okay with that.
You're
I
not
just-
okay with, I think what Liz is saying is that there would be 4 feet between the, you know,
Well,
between,
4-foot clear path, straight path down the sidewalk.
Okay, so are we picking it on the curb side? I think we have to be specific. Is it gonna be curbside, a 4-foot width? Not necessarily starting at the curb, but curbside as opposed to building side or right in the middle of the sidewalk?
Well, it sort of depends on the configuration. You know, if most restaurants, like next door, they have tables next to the building.
But some do not, so it has to be the same for everybody.
Yeah,
let's say curbside. I think that's closest to what we want.
which could be in where the trees are, because you can't
Right.
go next to the curb because there are tree wells every 2 feet.
In that case,
Right.
the trees are curbside.
Yeah. So just to make it clear, it's the path next to the trees.
And I mean, we can accommodate by getting tree grates if they need that to make the 4-foot path.
Well, let's wait for the tree grant to finish before we, you know, start making those recommendations.
Yeah, they'll have to work around the tree.
And the second part of your motion is that they are allowed to place dining tables in the parking lane?
In
Yes.
front of their establishment.
All right, so we have a motion from trustee Raymond that Businesses be allowed to use the sidewalk so long as they keep a minimum of a 4-foot wide continuous path along the curb side of the sidewalk for pedestrian access. And that they will be allowed to put tables in their parking places for dining.
I'm glad I'm recording this because I can't write as fast as that.
Should-
That's okay, I have it on,
That's accurate.
I have
should
it on.
we say
Is
for,
there a
And are we gonna say with the expense of erecting the concrete barriers to be borne by the establishment?
or at least for a fee?
Or are we gonna do a fee instead?
Well, I think they should pay for the materials, so that's gonna vary, isn't it?
The labor, right?
If you're gonna charge them, I suggest some sort of fee in advance.
Okay.
Charge.
So a fee to be determined and then per the fee schedule?
Larry, we already bought these things?
And they're useful things that we needed and for other purposes.
Okay,
So let's just say for a fee here, and then we'll figure out the fee.
Yeah, so more it's covering the labor costs.
yeah, it's a setup fee,
Right, and take down.
right?
So just
Drayage.
add, so just add for a fee to whatever the mayor said.
It's what's called the drayage fee, I think, at conferences when they set up and take down.
Drayage.
Was there a second for that motion?
I'll second it. Oh, sorry, Ben.
Right.
So we have a motion by trustee Raymond, seconded by trustee Fitzpatrick. You want to read us what you've got, Madam Clerk?
I can't possibly read it.
Okay.
No, yeah, I just have to listen to the tape so I can type it verbatim.
Pedestrians and tables in the parking lane
For a fee.
and a setup fee.
It'll be verbatim from the tape.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say
Aye.
Aye.
I heard 2.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Do we, and we still need to discuss and vote on the whole revenue advisory committee piece, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next order of business is the consultant for the tree inventory and management plan. Could I have a motion that Davy Resources be appointed as that consultant?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Cormos. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by trustee Baskin. Any discussion?
This was the consultant, picked after doing an RFP and was clearly the consultant with the most experience and actually the lowest fee as well. So,
Good combo.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Next item of business is the possible addition to section 174 of the village code. And this is the sidewalk dining and merchandise presented to us by the Revenue Advisory Committee. We've had this for quite some while. I think everybody's had a chance to look at it and mark it up. I suggest that we just go page by page and take any comments. Like trustee Baskin, I have a couple of minor things, but nothing of any major significance. So first page. The permit shall be valid from April 1st to December 31st. I wonder if December 31st is too late or if we're doing that on purpose to allow for Christmas holiday sales.
You want to say January 1st?
No, well, that's a good point, Larry. That's probably why it is there. I mean, I don't know that people would have things out but that would cover Christmas.
Seems to me you're getting into snow season potentially in some years. I know they wouldn't want dining in December, but the only reason I could come up with for having a December 31st end date was if people worried about Christmas sales or something like that.
Well, that's one of the things where I think they vote with their feet. You know, if it's too cold, nobody's going to sit out. If there's, you know, if the wind's blowing your holiday displays from here to Ohio, you won't put them out, you know.
Yes, as long as they maintain the safety of the sidewalk, I'm all right with that date.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need a caveat that if there's snow removal, they can't, their displays or whatever is prohibited?
Who removes the snow down there? DPW does all that?
No,
They do it themselves.
no, they do it
If we
themselves.
don't own it, we shouldn't maintain it.
All right, so we don't need to put that in writing here. They'll know to take their table up and do it.
Okay, anything else on page 1? Anything on page 2? We've got in line 4, a semicolon and number 1. That I think probably is just a typo that slipped through some edit, since I don't see any number 2, and since that's the end of the sentence. So maybe we just strike the 1 there. Our attorney is taking notes on all this while we're talking.
Mhm.
And then the only other thing I note is the specific amounts on the injury and insurance. We've been taking specific amounts out, but I think we have made exceptions for insurance numbers. So is it the board's
Mhm.
intention to leave those specific numbers in this particular instance?
For insurance, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else on page 2?
Yeah, visually, the last line on page 2, a clear unoccupied space must be provided not less than 5 feet in width from all entrances of the building abutting the sidewalk to the unoccupied portions of the public sidewalk. So I'm just having trouble visualizing. Does that mean like in the door, well, there has to be 5 feet around the door? Is that what that space is referring? Because above it talks about the 4-foot pathway. So can somebody, you know, I'm not great spatially, so can somebody help me out here?
From the door to the 4-foot pathway.
Ah, okay, that's what I thought it was. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's ADA.
Okay, thank you. Okay, to allow, okay, great, thank you.
All right, page 3. I see next to the last thing in the list of operating restrictions, no waste receptacles are permitted outdoors. Do we really want to not let them have a trash can out there?
I was looking at that too. I assumed there was a reason that was in there, such as is it just gonna lead to trash on the street? There are already waste receptacles on the street that are maintained by the village. I assume that it might be just a bigger risk of trash floating around on the street. Other than that, I'm not sure why it's there.
Yeah.
I think it might be, particularly in the summertime, you know, insect attracting and also odor. So I think they were taking abundance of caution if somebody didn't regularly remove the garbage.
Okay, and then at the bottom of the page, we've got a penalty of not more than $500. Is that another number that we want to leave in there?
Penalties I think took out the code.
Well, there, I don't know if this law or some other law, I asked about this last month, and the penalty is different than the fee. I asked, should we take out the penalty number? And because it was a penalty and not a fee, we thought it was, I forget what it was referring to, but we thought it was okay to reference in the law a penalty of not more than.
Yeah, but the rest of the code has a maximum penalty of 250. So I don't think we make this one different from the rest.
No, that's true.
Yeah. Mhm.
But do we want it in there at all?
Well, we've left it in so far anyways, all the rest of our, code for code violations, and it's, a maximum amount, and if you violate it, then it goes to court, the judge decides up to that amount. Isn't that correct, Stephanie?
Yep, that's correct. Most of them set the cap,
Cap.
highest amount, and then the judge would decide based on the violation.
Since that cap was probably set somewhere in the 1990s or something, we
A long time ago.
may want to up it at some point for when we do the whole code revision. But for now, we can keep it the same as the rest of the code.
So 250, you're
Yeah.
suggesting?
Okay, anything else on that page?
No, but I agree. It's probably better not to have waste receptacles. I mean, I like the language in there,
Mhm.
not to have extra.
Okay, next page, which I think is 4 maybe. First line's got a typo in it, I believe. Engaged in sidewalk. I assume that's supposed to be in sidewalk.
Sorry, Larry, where are you?
He's on-
First line. In addition, upon learning that any permittee engaged in sidewalk vending should be engaged in sidewalk vending.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else? Anything else on that page?
I'm concerned, and on my copy at least, village building inspector is highlighted. I'm not sure that the village building inspector is the appropriate party to handle a hearing. The hearing should be held either before the town or the village board or the village justice, depending on. I don't see the building inspector being the correct party to be having a hearing.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So you think it should be village board?
It could be the board or it could be the village justice. Either one, I think, is fine.
I think the justice might be more appropriate if they have the time. I don't know how slammed they are.
Well, I think they're open one night a week.
Yeah. I mean, has the town board ever had hearings? Has this been something the board has done before?
The village board is authorized to do hearings typically where there are unsafe buildings. So there is a format for that to be allowed in the village structure and the state law structure. But again, it typically is dealing with like safety type violations.
This is not really that.
The
No.
judge, yeah.
I think it should be.
I think it should be the court.
So do I. Yeah.
I mean, if there's a violation.
Does it make any sense to just make it the mayor?
No, I think,
Okay.
mm,
No, there are other places in the code where it says they can apply, or they can appeal to the board.
Mhm.
All right, so we're
Yeah.
changing
Yeah.
it to justice, village justice.
Village justice, yep.
Okay, anything else on that page? Anything on the next page? I believe is 5. No?
No, that's very, as long as we know, that's that we can meet these deadlines, which seem reasonable.
You're on the next page. The, when it comes to liquor, this, state liquor authority does have a role to play. We don't reference it anywhere here, but there are some forms and coordination with that authority. I don't know if it needs to be referenced in this law, that, that vendors should be in compliance with all, state SLA certifications or requirements.
I think that's under special provisions for sidewalk cafes on the next page. I think we're
Oh,
still
oh.
on merchandise.
Is it there? All right.
Yeah, on the next page, special provisions for sidewalk cafes.
Okay, that's low.
Uh,
I don't know if it mentions the SLA, but yeah, wherever the liquor is, yeah, that is the next page.
Yeah, it says all alcoholic beverages to be served at a sidewalk shall be prepared within the existing restaurant.
The operator of a sidewalk cafe shall be in full compliance with the licensing requirements of the state liquor authority.
Okay,
Oh, it is that? Where is that?
it's.
That's.
Oh, there it is. Yep, you're there.
Bullet,
I see it now.
Mhm.
An event that said sidewalk, yeah. All right, on that page, I had the question about the fence or the barrier, because I could not find language on, so this is a paragraph above it. What is it? The second all paragraph, this paragraph starts with all alcoholic beverages to be served. So it says, patrons are to be seated at chairs, benches, and or tables separated from the rest of the public sidewalk by an appropriate barrier, which shall include weighted stanchions and fencing with a minimum height of 36 inches and a maximum height of 42 inches. Such barrier shall be a type of material that is consistent with the aesthetic of the neighborhood. So I did not see, and I also don't see in Saratoga Springs consistently any kind of barriers. So I don't know if that's something we want to do. I don't know that we have to do it. It does infringe a little more on the space of the sidewalk. I don't know if it's necessary.
yeah, I think it is. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that spaces where alcohol is being served must be isolated from the general public with some sort of barrier.
All right, because it's definitely not happening in Saratoga Springs. You'll see tables all up and down the sidewalk, on the restaurant side of the sidewalk against the wall, people drinking. There's no fencing. And, it might just be a table of two and then another table of two, 5 feet down. And there's, there's no,
Who's
it may make
supposed to-
it, sorry, go ahead.
Who enforces that?
I have no idea, but it was very common. It wasn't an aberration. And it also might be difficult to have a complete fence around if you have a table of two here, a table of two there. I just
I
don't.
think during the non-COVID times, Saratoga does have enclosures around it, but they have been straying from that to enable a table or two here and there to be located in different spots.
Mhm.
I think it's just unusual the last 2 seasons, but typically they do have a barrier around it.
And you only have to have a barrier around it if there's alcohol involved,
Right.
right? Yeah, okay.
It could be those, like that velvet rope kind of thing from stanchion to stanchion. I did see that in a couple of places in Saratoga in the photos I sent to you guys too.
Okay, so we're okay with that one. Next to the last bullet, sidewalk cafe area shall not block FDC connection. Anybody know what that is? I do not.
Is that the fire department connection that's located on some buildings?
Could be. Are you just speculating or?
I'm speculating, complete speculation.
Do we have a fireman in the house?
Well, and I also wonder if we want to extend the 10 o'clock PM.
Mike Bayshore commented FDC is fire department connection.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. And that's a
All
good,
right. How about the 10 o'clock PM end time?
What time does the restaurants close typically? Do we know? Is it 11?
I think some stay later than 10.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it would, my thoughts on this is probably most kitchens close at 10. So is it going to be outdoor dining or outdoor drinking? Doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, then you could extend it.
I'd be okay with 11. It's not as if they're playing, it is a neighborhood. There are people who live above the restaurant and around the restaurant, so we wouldn't want a lot of noise. But I think conversational kind of noise can be, you close a window and it's all right. That's the only consideration I can think of as far as why not go to 11.
Mhm.
Any other opinions? Everybody okay with going to 11?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
we'll hear about it if it's not.
Okay. Anything else on that page? I think that brings us to the last page. And we've got a penalty there, not more than $500 that we're going to change to $250 down at the bottom.
Mhm.
And we've got no waste receptacles again, which we decided to leave in. Anything else?
Well, the one situation that actually has been mentioned by a number of businesses is when there's a special event, and I don't know if it has to go in this law. Maybe it's whether it's the snow day, the sledding, or some other event. Maybe somebody wants to serve some hot chocolate on the street, and maybe they bring a trash can out. I assume we're not going to be standing over people with batons. So, but there is that sort of like one temporary kind of situation where you may want to serve some hot chocolate or and have a trash can. I don't know if it just came to mind when I was thinking about the trash can issue, because I've seen people bring out things for temporary events.
We do the car show. There are a lot of, pop-up, booth vendors serving all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, you're right. They typically have a table or a booth covered, whatever, and want a trash can. Yeah.
Can we fix it with just some language that makes the business owner responsible for prompt
Removal, disposal.
Payment.
disposal of the contents?
Mhm.
I think I can come up with some language. I'll circulate all of these changes to you, but I'll come up with some language if that works for the group.
Okay.
Except on a temporary basis for special events or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Right, we're done with that one. We'll ask the attorney to get us the final language copy, and we'll have the first reading at the next meeting.
Okay.
Moving on to new business.
Yeah.
Could I have a motion that the budget transfers be approved?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I
Second.
second.
Second by trustee Cormos. Any discussion?
There was one transfer that was from, I think, police equipment to personnel for 14,000, I think, which I think it was the 524. I was just wondering what that was about, transferring
Or-
equipment to personnel sounds a little, unusual.
Yeah, kind of the same scenario as the DPW. Unaccounted for retirements and overtime based off of COVID kind of impacted their budget a little bit more than we expected.
Okay, so they haven't spent that money for the equipment.
Oh, correct. That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, so it was balancing the budget.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Any other discussion? All in favor of the budget transfers, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Could I have a motion that the previously approved concert in the park scheduled for July 25th be moved to August 1st with a rain date of the following week?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Could I have a motion that the Saratoga County Brew Fest be authorized to conduct its event at the fairground on June 26th from 4 to 7 p.m. And they have submitted proof of insurance and a COVID safety plan.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by trustee Baskin. Is there a second?
second,
Second.
Second by trustee Foremost. Any discussion?
beat you to it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Could I have a motion to approve the village's general liability policy with Marshall and Sterling for the term beginning June 1st, 2021 at a cost of $97,948.50?
I'll
Make
make that motion.
Motion by trustee Fitzpatrick, second by trustee Raymond. Any discussion?
Is that amount of the cost stayed the same, or is it going up, or is it going down?
Almost the same. All the liability coverage is the same. The only thing that went up this year for us is the cyber liability coverage, and that's because of all the ransom hits that other municipalities have gotten that they've been backing out of covering municipalities. So that's the only
And
increase.
did
And
you-
it was,
The company that did it like was no longer issuing those policies, so we had to go with a different company, and this is the cheapest one.
correct.
Okay, any other discussion?
Oh, this is the first time we've used Marshall and Sterling?
No,
No.
just the insurance for cyber liability. will
Okay,
change
okay,
it.
okay. All right.
And I just have to add from my perspective, because I call them periodically about, liability, and they know their stuff and they provide excellent service. I don't know if that's Julia and Larry's experience as well, but it is mine.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Could I have a motion to approve the contract with MJ Bourbon in the amount of $6,000 and to designate Kevin Crowe as the client representative?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Cormos. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Raymond. Any discussion?
Just explain, this is for grant writing?
Yes, it's a set lump sum fee for a one-year term from an outfit that purports to be expert in fire department money availability and grant programs.
And even beyond the fire department, right? It looked like they could do all kinds of municipal funding. Or is it really for the fire department?
It's for the fire department.
Oh, it is, okay.
If I may, I had a question. What are we looking for? I mean, I know that Liz helped write a grant at least once.
Right.
But what are they looking to, and I guess that was one of the things, there seemed to be some focus on building. Are they looking to
Primarily equipment.
primarily equipment?
Yeah, they have these oxygen bottles and turnout gear and all that stuff that's relatively expensive and has to be replaced periodically. And they're
Basically,
looking,
these grant writers can get a lot of grants that are available to the fire department, ranging from equipment, building, gear, and so forth. So they will apply for any one that the fire department requests them to do in that 1 year period.
Yeah.
Okay, I just, because I know a lot of this ends up being, I guess I was just wondering what they're going for. So you're saying equipment. I mean, it's because a lot of it ends up being matching grants. And I think if we're talking about something like, if it's on somebody's radar to be building a new firehouse, I think that should be a discussion for our whole facilities planning thing.
yeah,
That's
no,
all.
I don't think that's on the table at this point.
Okay, all right.
We would review that anyways, but
Yeah, I know.
go for it, don't we approve?
Yes.
Okay,
We've used this person before, this company before.
Nope.
Oh, we haven't?
No. They seem to be quite successful and qualified, and it is just a year contract, so, if they find that they are not getting results and, I helped out writing some, they didn't get it the first round, there's an application out currently. And, my expertise is not particularly in fire departments, so I'm happy to give it up if they feel that they get somebody who has more specific experience. And I offered also to, review text, etc., second set of eyes if they needed it.
okay. And this is, so we would front the money, and then by the end of the year, there'll be sufficient funds to pay the fee.
The money up front comes out of the fire department's budget.
Yeah.
Right, but there was something where you said, Larry, in your email that sort of confused me, where you said, Julia says by the end of the year, they will have sufficient funds for this. It didn't seem like a large amount to me.
That's the
So
end of this year, they're projecting to have sufficient funds left over to cover this 6,000.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
And
Thank
I
you.
mean, do we have a sense of how large a grant we're seeking?
Not yet.
The grant that we put in for, that's pending was over $300,000. So that's the kind of size to get the equipment. It's very expensive equipment.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Could I have a motion to approve the linkage study demonstration project on Hyde Boulevard? And I'll ask Trustee Cormos to give us the background information on that.
Okay. Do you want to first pass the motion and then discuss?
She appears to be frozen.
Oh,
Nope.
Hmm?
Here.
There, you're back.
you're
Trustee
break.
Cormos?
This is part of the linkage study. It's essentially a demonstration project. They picked Hyde Boulevard because it's wide enough to add 2 bike paths and still maintain parking on both sides. On other streets in the village, you would have to give up a parking lane, and they don't want to have a demonstration project restriping parking lanes into bike lanes. This will be a demonstration done by volunteers to put in the bike lanes, to put the bike symbols on, and it's only for one block from Grove Street to Chapman Street. And will be up for about a week or two. And then, you know, it's the type of, I think they're either gonna use tape or paint that disappears in the weather. And it's just to show what that would look like. They're hoping to do it, you know, while there's soccer games going on. So some of the people in the nearby soccer field will see, comment. We will inform the neighbors. You know, I'll drop a letter off to the neighbors in the vicinity, informing them about this as soon as we, you know, set a date, and then we'll also announce it on Facebook and on the website. So it's to show what adding bike lanes will look like, would look like, and how they might function. And we hope to get feedback from the cyclists that are traversing Hyde Boulevard currently.
All right, thank you. I don't believe we had a motion, did we?
No,
Could I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Baskin. Any discussion?
Liz, you have a whole evaluation plan, it sounds like, in terms of getting the feedback.
yeah, there'll be folks there, you know, during the sort of kickoff of it, and there'll be opportunity for people to comment. We're currently getting a lot of comments on the interactive map. And you know, during the liaison reports, I'll tell you more what's going on with that project.
Liz, is there going to be some sort of performance metric conducted for that week? I mean, are they going to observe, see if people are using the bike lane or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, not for the whole week, but for, you know, for the period that they'll be there on site and talking to people, and, you know.
Is there, if this is a favorable demonstration, is there locations other than Hyde where this would be applicable?
Well, like I said earlier, for most streets, you know, in order to maintain the travel lanes, you will have to give up probably one side of parking, which, you know, in order to accommodate adding bike lanes. And as you know, our right of ways, etc. Now, you know, if there's a wide right of way, you could put it in the right of way if there's no existing stuff there. But likely it would be, you know, just striping pavement, which, you know, would not be a costly thing. So part of the recommendations out of the whole linkage study will be where they suggest we add bike lanes to our infrastructure, and then that'll of course be open for comment.
So, but the layout they're proposing, the only real applicable place within the village is Hyde.
Maintain, I believe, with the maintenance of both parking on both sides. Although the reality on Hyde is very few cars actually park on Hyde. There's, you know, so, and I think also on other streets. So it may not be asking for much to give up one side of parking.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next item of business is our meeting schedules. Now that everything's changing and loosening back up, it has been suggested that we consider going back to meeting in person. I think we can do that. I have a couple of concerns personally. One is that I think there are still people out there who prefer remote access. And so I think it would be good if we could figure out how to provide that option for people who want it. And the second concern is that we've been recording these meetings and posting them on the website, and we don't currently have a system for doing that with in-person meetings. The town of Milton and I believe the city of Saratoga Springs use Zoom, and they have one laptop sitting back far enough to see the entire board. And the problem is that the recordings are virtually unintelligible because people are so far away from the microphone. The town of Ballston is getting all sorts of fancy equipment that's being donated to them to set up a permanent system in their meeting room. I'm aware of one camera that rotates 360 degrees and aims at the speaker, no matter who that person is, that costs roughly $700. But then I'm not going to be able to figure out how to install it and maintain, turn it on. So I guess the first question,
Wouldn't be me
do
either.
we want to go back to meeting in person instead of on Zoom? And the second question is, if we do that, and when we do that, do we want to make some sort of accommodation for continuing to allow remote access and recording of meetings? And I'll open it for discussion.
Some of the groups I belong have done it with, it's pretty crude, but they bring along an iPhone for non-Zoom and somebody points it at the people speaking, and we sort of made do on allowing people to join in. It's not sophisticated, but it worked. Part of the suggestion on in-person meetings from the Park and Tree Board, because we met recently and we met at Kelly Park, and we thought, as far as COVID and all that, that meeting outdoors in the nice weather, under a pavilion would, might be a nice first step to, going back to in-person meetings. We never had cameras before. I think having some cameras and doing that might be something to explore. Can we get a relatively inexpensive system to allow people to join remotely and hear what goes on?
Yeah, I would be in agreement that, well, what, have we gotten any public feedback as to the desire to meet in
People
person?
have told me that they don't like these Zoom meetings and that they wish we would go back in person.
Okay. So I guess with that being said, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with in-person meetings, but I do think that we need to maintain the ability to do a virtual meeting via Zoom. And, I think there's people that maybe would want to continue that, or if the usual suspects, if it were the people that typically attend meetings, if they decide to come in person, that leaves a space open on Zoom for additional people. I guess my thoughts, I don't see a problem with in-person meetings.
Couple thoughts. One is, I think the Zoom or remote meetings, at least as a component of the meetings, is going to be a standard thing in the near future, if not already. And it would behoove us to prepare ourselves to allow for that capacity, that capability. And there must be, little grants that maybe we could apply for to get the audio video equipment. But I think it's going to be expected before too long that, municipalities just do this kind of remote thing. And I think it really allows greater access to village government to have it. So I'd like to see it continue. I think it is, we are just about ready to have in-person meetings. One caveat is what do we do to, for example, to verify vaccination status, if anything? So for, there's guidelines now from New York State. If you're vaccinated, then there's no problem with, congregating inside. If you're not vaccinated, there are guidelines about social distancing and things like that. And so we should ask ourselves if we want to verify vaccine status, for example, for people coming into an indoor meeting. I'd be okay with outdoor meeting. It just adds a layer of complexity in terms of logistics and coordination and all that. I think it's okay to have indoor meetings in a space that's big enough to accommodate everybody. And it's nice to be outdoors, but it's much easier, I think. And, weather, the temperature is controlled and all that, to just have it indoors. So it'd probably be easier to do that. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, we had an outdoor meeting, worked fine. We didn't have to worry about I just thought it might be a nice transition. It was done in the past under Mayor Romano. He did it in people's backyards. We thought it would be probably more suitable to do it, in village property, at the parks.
I think it would be a nice transition with half the people vaccinated and half not vaccinated. It would sort of sidestep that issue a little bit for the immediate future.
And my thought was, to have it at a different park each time to bring in, people from different neighborhoods. That does add a level of, the next meeting will be held, at this park and then the next one at another park. But I think like if we hold a meeting up at, Victory Park, we get some input from people at that end of town.
And DPW does tables and chairs.
Yeah, I mean, we can each bring our own chair and just have tables set up for us and ask people to bring a chair.
Who's setting up all the tables?
Yeah, I think having it outdoors, especially now for the summer months, is not a bad idea, but I would pick one place. I think we've had enough trouble with communicating just to get people on Zoom, and consistent communication. I wouldn't move the meeting. I would pick one place. I had originally thought Iron Spring if we did it outside. I think that maybe Kelly Park would be better because it has the bigger pavilion and it has parking. But you also, the other thing you have to think about, not just weather, but if you're doing it at this time of night, you have to think bugs.
Yeah.
And also lighting.
Yeah, bugs, yeah, and lighting. So, but I do think, maybe for a couple of months, it's a good idea. And I think if you also, it would give you time for the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated. If you're outdoors, people don't have to get that close together, and therefore it'll take some pressure off the, Zoom, zooming it or filming it. Or if you're going to do that, I mean, I know, Liz, you said that, people did it with an iPhone. I just think that that's entirely for an open meeting. It's just entirely it's not organized enough. I think Ben is right. We have to get to the point where we're doing it on a regular basis. We have the equipment to do it. Somebody knows who's in charge, that they're going to do it. They set it up, they take it down, that kind of. So I think at least if we did it, while we were getting that together, to do it indoors, maybe in the fall, having it outdoors, and if people could feel safe outdoors, maybe that's the time you don't have Zoom. Just while you're getting yourself ready. But there's got to be somebody who's put in charge of that part of the technology, and it's not me.
Well, who's our IT consultant? Are they experienced in, setting up a video system for us?
Yeah, but they're not going to come and set it up every 2 weeks.
Well,
Yeah.
This new administrator position could
Yes.
Do that.
Yeah,
I spend a lot of time in night meetings and I haven't seen a municipality that's doing a hybrid of both in-person and electronic at the same time. I've not seen one municipality who has done it even remotely well yet. I think we can probably learn something from other municipalities that may have more resources. So you may want to think about either doing in person or continuing on Zoom. But the hybrid, it's not working well. People can't hear predominantly is the issue. Here, everybody's got a microphone. You can kind of hear if somebody's microphone's not quite working and they can fix it. But in the room, it's not picking it up in the same way. And I'm guessing you need much more sophisticated equipment than just a laptop to make it happen, because I see the town board does the hybrid. They have some people in the room, they have some people on Zoom, some of the board members are there, some are not. And there's glitches every single meeting, predominantly with not being able to hear, and that's, depriving people of access.
you need a system with microphones. And each board member, each, member that is likely to speak has to have a microphone. And then you have one for the public comment where people get up and talk into the microphone.
Well, I know the Warren County used to have their meetings and they would videotape them and just have a videotape that was accessible for people to watch. I mean, you could make that interactive if you had some sort of chat running on a laptop at the same time, so that if people were watching the video live streaming, they could chime in on the chat and ask questions. But again, that's only during the public comment period. So anyways, maybe just videotaping it would be feasible.
Yeah, but we don't even have that equipment as yet,
Yeah,
or the technology to, the tech person to set it up. I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, and I have to tell you, I did attend a number of those meetings that were in backyards over the years, and there seemed to me to be less people at those meetings than even at some of the other meetings, because there just tends in the summertime to be, on a nice evening, there are just less people, willing to do, a meeting. So I don't know if the best thing is to just pick a date and go back to the library and try and figure out at some point if we can, film it, for people who want it.
Having experienced the outdoor meetings firsthand, some of the things that I recall was really talking fast through an agenda. And of course, that might be a good thing because of an impending thunderstorm.
Right.
And then the other things too is when it is 90+ degrees and then the evening hits and the mosquitoes come out. And also when the thunderstorms happened 15 minutes before the meeting was going to start, and it had to be relocated back to the village offices, and everybody's like, well, where is everybody?
And Larry's
So
gonna have to call it. Larry will have to call it, and then we'll have to communicate with people. Yeah, it just.
Yeah, there's a lot of logistics to it. I mean, if you wanted to do it, I think it's feasible to do it once or twice, but it should be like the second week in June to the first week in July, when it's light till 9 o'clock at night. I think that would probably be your window of opportunity. So
Maybe we just do it inside. Business is business. We're not there to hang out. We're there to get something done, and inside is where we can do it most effectively. And maybe we just have like an ice cream social outside or something, some more social thing, meet your trustees, whatever, other kind of event that is a quasi meeting. But when it's really, there's business to do, maybe we should just be inside and get the business done.
Mhm.
But I think we're coming back down to continue to do Zoom meetings until we feel like we've got a good setup inside.
That's not what I'm hearing.
Well, I mean,
I'm hearing we go back inside and,
how do we deal with the unvaccinated and social distancing? I mean, the library basement is not that big and we've got 26 participants at this Zoom meeting. Try putting them 6 feet apart in the library basement meeting room.
Well, we can have some seating that's closer for people who have their Excelsior passes.
Then we're gonna check Excelsior Pass. Yeah,
Mhm.
I got mine. But it does, that is what businesses are supposed to be doing, what sports events are doing, is checking if people have vaccine record or a negative test.
yeah, but aren't you gonna get into issues with, denying somebody access
Right,
to a public meeting because they haven't been vaccinated?
right.
Sorry, we don't have enough room for you, because you have to be 6 feet
We don't
apart.
deny them access, we just make them sit in the socially distanced seating.
Yeah, it just, this is a slippery slope because to request somebody, you're basically asking them to give them their healthcare record.
Mhm.
That's not usually public information.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah, that's a problem.
Zoom
Yeah.
for the time being.
Well,
until-
if they don't want to show it, they just sit in the socially distanced section.
I guess that would be the way to handle it. If they prefer not to provide that, then they'd have to sit socially distanced. I
Yeah,
guess
but
that works.
I don't think there's enough room.
You know what I think? I think maybe we make a decision that we have Zoom for the month of, I think a lot of this is in the preparation and a lot more will become more clear as the weeks go by. Like we're gonna have to decide whether or not we're gonna want employees to continue to wear masks. There's this whole question that we're discussing about the library and, that kind of thing. Maybe we make the decision that we meet via Zoom for one more month, for the month of June, and we prepare to go, we figure out and do what we need to do and listen to the advice from like NICOM and the Department of Health and prepare to go, back into in-person meetings in July.
I think that's a reasonable
Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah, I like that.
methodology.
Pardon? I'm sorry, Larry, what did you say? I didn't
I
hear you.
like that.
And I work at the Department of Health, so I'll ask some people there how, I've seen guidelines for various events, but not public meetings. So let me
Right,
ask about
right.
that.
Mhm. Yeah.
It is a different animal.
All right, so are we all comfortable then that we're going to stay on Zoom for our 2 June meetings and that we're going to use June to prepare for hopefully moving indoors in July?
and also to start looking into the technology that's needed.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that we can share, continue to do remote.
So who's going to check into that? I mean, asking me to look into stuff like that is pretty pointless.
I'll look into it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, moving along. I have told the board that I would like them to approve a conceptual long-range facilities plan. And the reason that I would like to do that is so that I can start investigating options. And it's a lot easier to investigate options if you have a concept approved that people have agreed on. Then I can start looking at specifics. And so I sent out a draft last week, I think it was, short, sweet, one-page draft that identified 3 priorities for our facilities. Priority number 1 is a new DPW facility. I propose that we start looking for a new location where we could build a new facility, and that the first place we look should be on the 20 acres we own off Malta Avenue. I would like to go ahead and start investigating that, but I would like first for the board to have said, yes, they want me to move forward with this plan. Priority 2 is to relocate the police and the court. We have had discussions with the emergency squad. We know they're planning to move. We know that building will become available. I'm suggesting that we continue to communicate with them and continue to plan for that eventuality. And priority 3 is the village hall. And ultimately we need to redo the top 2 floors, and we need to provide modern facilities and an elevator. That would be a lower priority for me, but if the board would agree that those 3 things are on the list of things we need to do for our facilities, then that would allow me to start taking some of the preliminary investigatory steps. So I'll open it up for discussion on the draft that I distributed last week.
So just to start out, so facilities are essentially just buildings. They don't include like
Right.
our water facilities, our stormwater facilities, our sewer facilities.
Right.
It's just buildings,
Right.
right?
Yeah, building plan.
Okay.
Obviously,
Yeah.
we have a lot of needs in terms of the infrastructure, but those are not comparable to go in the same list, and we are pursuing those in other ways with our engineers and studies and evaluations.
Yeah. Okay. I just kind of clarification. That's all.
I know, I sent around sort of my thoughts, having worked for 30+ years in commercial real estate and worked with tenant buyer reps and people looking at whether they should renovate a building or whether they should look for a new building, should they relocate, et cetera, on the commercial side of things. My recommendation is that we start with an analysis of how much space do we need for village functions, police, court, DPW, and administration. That's an exercise which actually I did for clients, but I would not do it here. But I, recommend that we either hire an architect or somebody that has experience with municipal facility planning and have them do the work to say, okay, how much space does DPW need for what functions currently? What's their future? When you're talking facilities, it's long range. Once you decide a building, you're not going to say, oh, we forgot this and we need this, and so it's a significant investment, and I think we need to take that first step. And then the second step is then look at, okay, we know police and court need so much of this type of space. They need this space, this characteristic, they need bathrooms, they need a conference room, all the, accessory spaces that you need in, an office. And then they would look at the EMS building and determine whether the space needs of the police and court can fit in that building functionally. Is there the room to do it? And if so, then, that you go ahead and look at then the financial feasibility of moving into that space. And likewise, you do, if we're likely looking at a new building for DPW, again, how much space do they need? And then we can look at you know, the project budget for a new building and know that it's the right size. And for administration, the same thing.
I guess what I would say on that, Liz, I would agree with you 100% if we didn't have an existing police department and an existing court and, you know, existing village offices that are operating, you know, and we may have space deficiencies in those, but if we don't and we're not code deficient, then I guess the simple matter of is how much square footage do we have now and how much square footage is there in the proposed location?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that because, you know, there's adjacencies, you know, what space needs to be next to what? Then you have circulation space, you have the restrooms, all of that. It's not as simple as saying, oh, we're taking up X amount of space now and we think we need this. There's also the issue of if you kind of just don't have somebody who knows how to do this and you just ask the employees how much space they want, you know, then you'll get an answer probably for more space than you really actually need. I mean, if you hire somebody that's got experience designing municipal spaces, they will have a lot of recommendations about efficiencies that we don't have now. And they came up with the idea that this could go, you know, a different combination in a space. I really think, given the investment, it's worth planning and doing it the way professional office, you know, professionals do when they're considering space.
I disagree for two reasons. One, I think I disagree for two reasons. And one is we have department heads who know what they need. I've had long discussions with all three of them, and they know what they need and they know what they have, and they're capable of telling us what they need. And the second thing that I have an issue with is I'm really tired of paying consultants to do plans when we've got buildings that needed to be addressed many, many years ago. And we're going to say, okay, now we're going to wait while we do more studies and more plans. And I would just like to see us go ahead and get started. And I think, well, you know, department heads are capable of telling us what they need.
Department heads, yes, they've been in space that does not work for them, either because of its condition or its layout or whatever. And you're asking them to basically be architects and space planners. And that's not what they've been trained to do. And I understand people are tired of planning, but I think if you don't take the step to plan something, you're going to end up with something that is not going to work. And there are, yes, there are people that can do this and also take you out of the equation as to, no, you don't need a 300 square foot office. 150 square feet is suitable for your needs. And that then is a suggestion not made by Larry Woolbright or the board, it's made by a professional. So
well, I guess we clearly disagree on approach, so I'd like to hear from the other three members of the board.
Well, I sympathize with what Liz is saying. I think it is more complicated than we realize. I think there may be a way to both move forward and do studies. You know, my first response to the three-pronged proposal was, I'm ready tonight to vote on moving forward with the DPW proposal. I think it makes perfect sense to look in that vacant space and let's get started. And if we need a motion to bring to is it Milton that owns that land, or I mean, not owns it, but zones it?
Malta.
You know, if they need a motion from us to rezone that land, then I'm ready to make that motion, because I think it makes perfect sense to move DPW over there and really start on that project in earnest. And maybe that requires the least amount of sort of engineer planning, in the sense that we'd be starting from scratch. We're not trying to fit into a building. And there are models around us of towns that have built DPW buildings, and they're not super far past that we could look to. And so maybe that could be done without too much delay in terms of studies and whatever else is needed. And I'd be willing to move forward on that immediately. The second one, yeah, the police and the court have got to move somewhere else. Mayor, how many square feet is the building they're in? Did you find that out? We're going.
Yeah, I did. It's 3,000 and change, 3,600, 3,700.
All right,
I don't have the figure in front of me, but it's roughly 2,000 square feet less than the EMS facility.
the EMS is 5,000 or so, I think,
It
right?
was 55, I think Ray said it was 5,500.
All right, so about
5,500.
I mean, just walking through there, it was not obvious to me that it would accommodate all the different functions of police and court. The police and court are so crammed in there, and it's such a substandard space that they need a lot more space, I think, to do things adequately. And so it seems like a good fit with the emergency, but it would need a lot of reconfiguring in that building, I think, to make it work. And I think it's beyond a layperson's brain to do that. I think we would need professional assistance. I think we have time, because they say they're not going to be out of there for 12 or 18 months. So we have that time to do something there. The third thing, I love that building. It's a great location, but it would need a lot of money to make my top priority is that we have a functional village hall. Beyond, that's more important than the aesthetics in my mind. And to make it functional, you'd need the elevator, you need bathrooms, as well as all the interior work. And at least, I don't know everything else, but it wouldn't be cheap, and it would probably, obviously would require some engineering. And so that's a longer term plan too, in terms of exactly what we do, or does it make sense to go to that building versus there's some more modern building in the downtown area, or some other building. So it's not as obvious what to do with the third one. I'd like to try to make it work, but I don't know that we have to vote on all three at the same time, because we're not going to do all three at the same time. Why don't we do the first one, which I think we could all reach consensus on, and move forward. And while we're doing that, we also look at and think about and study the other two.
I guess my thought.
Yeah, I'm not really necessarily asking for a vote, asking for us to say, yeah, we're interested in pursuing these things, so move forward with the data gathering.
Yeah,
Sure, data gathering.
I would say that I think we all are in agreement that your first priority is the DPW. And before we get into whether, a physical layout of a building and whatever the building code requirements and the fire code requirements are, A, you have to get the rezoning. B, you have to do a survey before you can even decide to put a site plan on something. You need a survey. So those are two things we need to do before we can start talking about an actual building and the layout and code requirements. I think actually even more immediately that maybe we need to consider hiring an architect to do a layout of the emergency corps building for the court and the police department, to make sure that we're going to satisfy, fire code and whatever the requirements that are needed by the police and the court. If we got that in the process now, if we have a high confidence that we are going to purchase that building, we would basically have a blueprint already so we could hit the ground running. I see that as actually probably gonna happen sooner than the DPW building,
Well,
potentially. So,
you're gonna need a plan for the DPW. I mean, all of these, you're gonna need the plan of the building. How big is it? You know, even just for site plan review. And I think probably, I don't know.
yeah, but we're not even anywhere near there yet.
No, but I don't know if Malta is willing to give us a variance without knowing what's going on the property. If they're willing to, that's fine, then let's get the rezoning for a municipal building, but they may want to know how big it is, which you gotta then figure out how big it is and get an architect. And the first thing they're gonna do is a space plan. So,
Well, or you can simply say, how big do you think it is? Add 50% to it. And
yeah,
then if the Malta Avenue box, then you have to look at it closer. If they don't, then we move on.
Yeah, I don't think they're not gonna ask for an engineer specifications. They know the use of the land that we are proposing and they know what a DPW facility looks like. I don't know how much.
no, I think if, you know, that would be the first step. I think that's what we should authorize Mayor Woolbright to do, is to pursue with Malta, the rezoning of that property.
That's what I'd like to do.
If I may, I absolutely agree with the moving forward on DPW. I do not want to get into, and I know we're going to have to step by step, we're going to have, you know, provide somebody with some kind of a plan, you know, as we move forward to put something on that space. I do not want to get into hiring somebody to do an overall plan, because I think that we all pretty much know, or at least I do, what we want to do, which is we want to move DPW. I think that moving the court and the police into the emergency corps is, you know, has many benefits. I think it's a public building. It has and I think, you know, public money should be used for the public good. That building has served the public for years. I would much prefer, for example, buying that than having a developer develop something else and, you know, pay a developer. What I am, you know, paying somebody else to renovate a private space and, you know, sell it back to us. I think that that's a solid building. I agree with, but I do think, and we all know that I'm not great spatially, but I do think we have to figure out, like when I was with Mayor Woolbright and Trustee Baskin, looking at the police station and the court and the ambulance corps again, because Chief Bush was talking about needing a bigger evidence room. That's where I think we have to take, and that's the second step, we have to take a look and see if everything we think can fit, everything we want to can actually fit there and work. And I think there was also some point at which we thought that maybe, you know, some of the village hall, maybe the I don't know, the building inspector or whatever, we have to, it might be at the emergency corps. We have to see if that actually can, you know, can happen. And that's where I think we need a space planner, where but for that limited
Okay.
space. And then the third thing in terms of village hall, I realize that it is, you know, that it's going to be expensive to renovate, but it is also, you know, for me, we own that building. We own it, and it seems to me, you know, if we own it, like taking care of our stuff, taking care of our own buildings where we possibly can, I mean, is a better public good than, you know, buying something from, a private entity. And I think that that could be configured in a number of ways. We've talked about using, the top 2 floors. We could use something like, we could use the first 3 floors, but reconfigure the main floor that we have. And I think the whole issue, the main floor now could be reconfigured in some way, and we could use the floor above it and then the storefront. There's a lot of ways to do it. And I know that there's this issue about how, if we were going to use Village Hall, there's this whole issue about an elevator. Well, yeah, if we're going to use Village Hall, continue to use Village Hall, which I think more in favor of than not, we're going to have to put in an elevator. But the other thing is, if we were going to sell it, okay, we'd also, whoever was going to buy it would be looking at that building and would take, I don't know, $100 grand off the top because it doesn't have an elevator. So either way, that expense is either going to have to be figured into using the building, or it's going to be figured into, if at some point we were going to sell it, the fact that there is no elevator that goes all the way to the top. That sounds like a bad joke. I don't mean to make that joke. That if we didn't have that elevator, it's gonna cost us in the end, because it's going to cost us it's going to affect our ability to sell that real estate. So those are my feelings with.
Question, what premium are we gonna pay to renovate that building? And do we want to renovate it to, its historical, or just strip the inside and make it plain vanilla office space inside? And, just.
Well,
So it's a question of really, I mean, yes, we own it, but if renovating it costs the taxpayers more money than us purchasing a plain vanilla functional office space, I think we got to ask the voters where they want their money spent.
Well, I think we'd have to find that out. I think, and that's the last, we have to find out how many, from my perspective, how many people we can actually move into the emergency corps. And that, as I'm saying, that's where I think we really need to do a space plan for that entity.
Right.
But then I think once we figure out how many people are not going to be in Village Hall, then I think that's when we figure out and where we can put the confounding records. That's when I think we start figuring out, what we're going to do to that building. And I don't think it has to be, renovated to the, I think it has to be, as Ben says, it has to be functional.
Right. But we
All
also.
right, I think we've pretty exhausted this subject, and we do have more things on the agenda tonight, and I would like to try to finish at 9. So can we agree that I'm going to start investigating the property out on Malta Avenue, and that we're going to continue our discussions with the emergency squad and the department heads in terms of what spaces are available and what spaces are needed?
Well,
Is
specific.
that okay with everybody?
Specific to DPW and the EMS, I think we're holding on, having you take action on Village Hall where, at this point.
Well, you can gather data, as you say, that's fine. I mean, do you want it, would it help Malta to have a motion for us to ask them officially to rezone that property?
No, I don't think so. I have had preliminary discussions with them, and the first question was, does your board support this? So now I can say yes.
Right. Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm content.
Official.
So thank you for those thoughts. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for the 2021 expenditure?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second. I'll second,
Second by trustee Baskin.
sure.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for 2022 expenditures? These will start June 1st.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Trustee liaison reports. Any reports tonight?
I have some. Just quickly, we sent out the RFP for the comprehensive plan consultant, and 211 firms. One has already said they're not going to apply. They are due June 8th, and then will be reviewed by the comprehensive plan committee. The existing condition final draft is coming out, I believe, tomorrow. It'll be circulated to the board for your comments, and will be given to the chair of the comprehensive plan committee, and I presume he will distribute it to the members of the plan. And they hope we'll set a deadline, 2 weeks hence for comments, and then they will produce the final report. The linkage study has been holding focus groups last week and this week to get commentary on sidewalks, on bike paths, on linkage to Zim Smith. One more focus group will be held this Wednesday, and that'll be focused on the connecting to the Zim Smith. If you're a cyclist or you're just interested in that, in putting in input into that process, just send me an email and I'll put you in contact with them. And we passed Davey as the consultant. Unfortunately, they won't be able to start the process of the inventory until August, because DEC's been giving out a lot of money for these kinds of projects. So the consultants are booked up, but he'll start the inventory this August. That's it.
Okay, thank you. We do have a couple of items of other business tonight. First of all,
Could I just, in terms of, if I may, for the library, the library is inaugurating a new website very soon. And the other thing I would say to anybody who has, they're going to be doing a lot more programs out of doors, probably in the Iron Spring Park, so we can get children away from computers and out of doors and into books. So visit the website, because there's going to be a lot more of that this summer than there has been in the past.
And just
Thank you.
briefly, I went to the Ballston Business and Professional Association meeting with Liz a couple weeks ago, a week ago. They're always looking for volunteers to help them with events, to staff the farmers market table, to help with social media posts, things like that. June 5th, they're having a craft fair at Brookside Museum, and movies in the park. There's a lot going on. They have a calendar full of events. I won't go through them all, but it was a good meeting.
Just a friendly reminder that this weekend coming up is one of the last weekends. If you want to put something out on the street that isn't in a bag or bundled up, this is your opportunity. So that's
the
all
last
I
day
have.
is Monday, a week from tonight.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, under other business, we do need to schedule an executive session to meet with our labor attorney about the contract negotiations. I didn't try to put it on tonight because we're still getting some final numbers worked up that we'll need to look at, but we do need to do it before the next negotiating session, which I think is June 4th. So Christine and I were looking at possibly a week from tonight, which she pointed out is Memorial Day. And then we said possibly a week from tomorrow night then instead. So I wanted to ask about the board's availability, and then we'll talk to the attorney and see what she can accommodate. Christine, did you say you had a conflict on the 31st?
Yeah, well, I have a conflict because it's Memorial Day. Yeah. So, and I think that's a holiday, and but I also think we could look at June 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I mean, I don't think that necessarily, I think we could look at any one of those dates. But I don't know how anybody else feels, but I'm going to be traveling on Memorial Day. I should be home on the 1st.
Yeah, the 2nd I can't do, but the 1st and
Or
3rd.
the 3rd you can do. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll be out of town. I will be back in town on the evening of the 31st, but if I had a preference, it would be any other day of that week.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So the 1st or the 3rd, Ben?
Yeah, I could do the 1st or 2nd, and then the 3rd is a little more difficult. But if I have to, I'll do the 3rd.
So we're looking at 7 PM on the 1st.
That
Yeah.
work for everybody, 7 PM on the 1st?
sure.
I have
Okay.
not, I have asked, I haven't got an answer back, but I mean, I talked tentatively. I think they will make themselves available. So, yeah, and I will confirm that, Larry, tomorrow.
Good, thank you. And the only other item of new business is I'm trying to move forward with the job ad for this village administrator, and trustee Baskin said he wanted some discussion on the job description. So I'll turn this over to him.
All right, I didn't know if we'd do it if we needed more discussion in here or not, or an executive session or whatever. But yeah, no, I was just thinking it would be helpful, and I think I've heard other trustees say this, to just clarify if this person is going to provide day-to-day supervision of other staff. And I know you've responded saying you're not sure if we can do that. I think some other municipalities do have a position such as administrator that does provide direct supervision of other staff. I think that would be helpful if we could put that clearly in the job description, and that's the piece I was bringing to the front.
I mean,
Okay,
you supervise a supervisor, basically.
Well, I would think the administrator is going to implement the policies and directives that the mayor gives him, correct?
Right.
Yeah. correct.
Yeah.
The real question, if you do an example, is now, I mean, we can't ask department heads like Jeff to do a task or to correct, something that there's a complaint about or whatever. We report it to the mayor and he asked Jeff to take care of it. Is that correct?
Right.
The way it works now.
Yep.
Now.
And now I would be able to ask the village manager, or the village administrator, to get with Jeff and work it out. But that would still be under my authority and my initiative.
But would you need to know that, in other words, it would have to go through you? In other words, if there's a storm grate that's done, I couldn't directly ask the village administrator to take care of that.
You can't in law do that anyway. The trustees cannot direct.
No, not directing. I'm not directing Jeff. I'm
No,
passing.
you can't direct the administrator either.
No, I'm not talking
The
about
person. You can't, the mayor is the only one who has the authority to do that.
Christine, you didn't understand. I'm talking about, I noticed something needs fixing. So now I send an email to Larry telling him there's something broken. He talks to Jeff, who gets it done. I'm saying, could I report that to the administrator directly and they would take care of it? Or does it still have to, does Larry still have to deal with it? That's really the question.
I
You
would
can
think
report
Larry
it to
would
the
have to
clerk right
approve.
now.
Wait,
Everyone's talking.
what'd you say,
Go ahead,
Larry?
Larry.
I said you can report any issues that you're aware of to the clerk's office right now. You don't have to report them directly to me. The clerk will
Right.
pass them on. And this job description draft says, under the authority of, and when appropriate in consultation with the mayor, oversees and coordinates the work of all village employees.
Okay,
So it's my expectation that this person is going to do a lot of oversight, but it's going to be on my authority in consultation with me,
okay,
because that's the way it has to be.
okay. I guess I'm clear. I mean, I don't know, Ben?
Well, is my impression that it would be helpful. And Christine, you have said this in the past, that it would be helpful for expectation setting and knowing what's expected, and having some direction on a day-to-day basis, for someone to be on site in a full-time capacity, sort of directing things, under the mayor's authority. So, this is a new position, and if it can go either way in terms of whether we want to put that word supervises staff on there or not. There are other municipalities that do specifically have that word in the job description, supervises staff. But if it could work without that as well, potentially. I think it's a stronger job description to put it in, but I'll defer to what the majority wants.
I mean, I personally believe that when you say oversees or provides oversight, that is a synonym for supervision.
Well, what we have now is coordinates, so it's not exactly.
Well, we have both.
It's
We
oversight.
have
of
oversees and coordinates,
the work or something.
oversees and coordinates personnel practices and work of all village employees.
And also, you added something about evaluation too.
Yes, you put that, yeah, that's just in. I've been falling over that description and now I can't find it.
So that person would participate in the evaluation of
So
individuals.
My direction and consistent with board policy.
Mhm.
do you see them being very hands-on with the different departments? I'm talking to the mayor.
It takes time.
What?
It takes time. It
Yeah.
takes time to develop a working relationship with somebody and for somebody to get the lay of the land. And there are certainly some things that are routine that happen on a regular basis that I probably don't even need to think about. There are other things that aren't.
Would you be
And there's a
worried?
continuum in between. And I think this
I guess-
language,
I guess one thing I'd
allows
worry
for that.
about. One thing I'd worry about is if it's clear to the employees who they answer to, for instance, if he's doing day-to-day operational things, but he's not their supervisor. It's just it's a little more vague than maybe it needs to be.
I think that's just a chain of command issue. Maybe you need, that would be clarified. What is the chain of command?
Well,
You know,
that's the question. That's what I'm asking.
Well, I don't know if that needs to be clarified for the job description. That's more of an internal policy.
Well, if it's a policy, it's got to be, aligned with the job description. I mean, you got to put it all together and make it consistent.
Yeah, I mean, the person's got to know if that's part of their responsibility in this job.
So,
I guess, is that just a language change? I mean, are those people that he's providing oversight, are they reporting to that person?
Well, that's the question.
No, they're reporting to their department heads and ultimately to me. As
So-
per New York State village law.
Yep.
And I don't know about New York State town law. It's possible that there are differences there. But according to New York State village law, the mayor supervises all employees.
There are examples of
So-
municipalities where you have the language where the administrator does supervise staff. But I just think it would be clear role for this person to just simply say they supervise, if that's what they're doing. If they're not supervising, then we shouldn't say it. I'd like to see them have some daily, day-to-day hands-on supervision to help, just provide some direction on a daily basis. But it could work without it. I think it might be stronger with it, but so that's just my thoughts.
I guess I think we, for moving forward, I think, right now we're kind of splitting hairs. So we really don't know that this position could evolve over time too.
Mhm.
And then we may have to modify the job description. So I think what you have right now is probably pretty good in the sense as getting possible candidates. The first thing we have to do is to see what kind of candidates we get.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
And, Larry, Mayor Woolbright, you also agreed that we would interview any prospective, you do the first screening, but we would interview candidates.
No, I actually haven't gotten that far yet. I have
No,
asked Christine, I've asked Trustee Fitzpatrick if she would help me with the interviews. And I have two other people I intend to ask who are staff members who I don't think I've said anything to yet, so I'm not going to say that in public, but I was intending to put together a small screening group.
well, I think as an initial screening, but if you have a candidate, I think since it's a key position, just like when we hired Julia, we all had an opportunity to interview her. At least I would like the opportunity to do so for this position.
That was basically the standard that we used in the past, is that there would be a group interview with the board once you made a short list of candidates.
Okay.
So basically anybody
All right,
gets
we'll
interviewed.
cross that bridge.
The-
Thank you. That brings us to public.
Wait, sorry. There was one last minute thing. I don't know if you want to consider it or not, but we got a last minute email from the Arts Committee asking if we would give them a green light to apply to Saratoga Arts Council for a small grant, $500 or $1,000. I sent you an email. You may not have seen it even. It just came in this afternoon.
No, I didn't.
All right. So maybe it's
Well, I don't think it's a problem. It's such a small amount of money and it's a grant. This is something we don't want to be doing all the time, but we
Is
have
it coming from the village?
coming from the Arts Committee.
actually going through BACC as the applicant. And it's not us as the applicant.
BACC is the applicant. You don't have to approve it.
It is for a project on public property though.
Okay.
So their first idea was a planter project where they put planters around town. They're decorated and
Yeah.
Sort of like the equivalent it was of, remember the rocking chairs, but this is planters with, plant in them. I just have a question. It's not going to this isn't going to take away money from anybody else that's already doing something, right?
No, this is a private foundation that.
Right.
puts out a Grant
Okay.
application.
Yes, they had some extra money.
Yes, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to be assured of that. Yeah,
Right, so if they're applying for this money through BACC, then let them go ahead and apply through BACC. And if they get the money, then let them bring their project idea that they want to accomplish on public property to us for approval.
Okay.
okay.
They-
I mean,
they're
I don't see any
asking-
reason why we would approve something here. We don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, what she wrote here, specifically, we are asking the Board of Trustees to approve the Committee on the Arts sponsored by BACC requesting grant funding from Saratoga Arts for use in this fiscal year, amount $500,000. So I guess they're just asking for permission to apply.
So they need
As a
our
committee.
permission to apply,
I guess they're feeling they do. So
right?
I'd say I'm okay with it.
I'm all right.
I am too, as long as
I'm
it's,
fine with that.
okay. It looked interesting. Yep,
Did I hear everybody say, okay?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, you got your answer.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to public comment. See if we have, yeah, we have almost everybody still with us. If you'd like to make a public comment, please raise your hand and I will recognize you. And please remember to give us your name and address for the minutes before you speak. Okay, I see a hand. Mark Bleck. Mark, you're allowed to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mark Bleck, 10 Thompson Street. Regarding the Arts Committee getting a grant, what you're basically saying them, by approving them getting a grant, you're approving their project for that grant. That's what they're asking you, which means they're asking you to put the planters on village property. When I've had to get grants through you guys, you wanted to see all my, what the grant entailed, who's going to be involved, every minutia about my grants. I don't understand why these people are not being treated to the same examination. To get a grant and then, you're asking them to get the grant and then you'll approve the project, which means if you don't approve it, they're gonna have to return the money. So the grant is specific. They have to tell you, you have to tell them what you're gonna do, how you're gonna spend the money. If you don't do that, you have to return the money, which doesn't look favorably, not just on them, but our whole village. So I think before you allow them to use public property, you need to know what they're going to, how it's going to be used, before they find this grant. There was concern, I was a part of a discussion about these planters. The question is who's going to maintain them? And whether, as Shawn has said about the right-of-ways, is there ample placement for these planters throughout the village, with the ADA compliant. The other question that I had for them when this was discussed is that they were saying that the DPW would store these planters. Well, again, as we know, with the DPW shortage, not just of people, but of space to store things, where would these planters then go? So all these things about the grant has to be worked out and, discussed with Jeff Gowery, whether that's something they want to get involved with, maintaining these planters through the year. I'm not understanding why you're being so cavalier about this grant application when, I've not been, I've had to be treated in a different way to the, so I think y'all, before you approve the use of your the village property, you need to really look at what they're gonna do.
Can I respond?
Sure.
I think you make a lot of good points, actually, and the ideal situation would be that they would have a specific project and we would review it. So it would be perfectly reasonable for the board to say, we don't have the information we need and there's not enough time, and so we can't give the green light, and then BACC could apply on their own, for this. What I didn't read about the planters is they were going to try to make it like a fundraising thing where they sell the planters at the end and give them away. So it wouldn't be a storage situation. I think there's enough right of way on the sidewalk, just because we did those rocking chairs. I have to think it's not going to be more room than the rocking chairs, but those are all good questions. And you're right, we sort of did a shortcut in terms of approval. I guess I was feeling somewhat comfortable just because it's such a small amount of money, like $500, $1,000. It's not a big, whatever it is, it's not a big project, but you're right, it's not done. It wasn't done according to how it really should be done. So yeah, the one thing that I felt.
All right, thank you, Mr. Black.
Sorry. Moving on, sorry.
All right, I don't see any other hands. I'll scroll through one more time.
There's two more.
I see Shawn H. You're permitted to talk.
All right, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Great.
Yes.
Shawn Hinckley, 115 Prospect Street. I just wanted to, well, I don't really want to talk too late, but you guys are talking about the Zoom meetings. I really think you should consider continuing that. I guess indefinitely. I find it's a lot easier for myself to participate in what's going on in the village when I don't have to sit in the basement of a library for a couple hours. I have 3 young kids. It's just hard to get out twice a month. I would think that it would be reasonable to maybe forego allowing remote people to do public comments and maybe have those comments be done in person. But it has been great just sitting here and listening while I'm able to take care of some other tasks in my house. There are video conferencing solutions. I know my office had 4 locations across the state, and they've since repurposed them to do Zoom on site with everyone being remote, and they seem like it works pretty well. So that might be an option where you can get like the VCR type device that does that capability for you. And if it's permanently installed in the library, it can be used for other things in the future as well. So that's my comment. Have a good night. Thanks for all you do. Take care.
Okay, thank you, Shawn. Next hand I see is Richard Robichaud. And you're allowed to talk, but you're still muted.
Yes, good evening. I was just wondering where we stood on the speeding issue for, oh, I forgot my address, 53 West Street. On the speeding issue for West Street. We talked about possibly some speed limit signs. And I wanted to throw it out there, maybe children at play signs. Did a little research and found out that it's been successful in other areas, not only in our state, but across the country. And some of these speed limit signs being posted with like flashing lights, and it helps reduce the speeding. So I was wondering where we stood on this issue.
Okay, thank you. I have discussed the issue with Mr. Gowrie, who's the head of DPW, and he is investigating some sign options, and we're actively pursuing the solution.
Okay.
So that's where we're.
Thank you. Yeah. And there was one more thing here. I do like the Zoom meetings. I find it very convenient as to possibly being uncomfortable in another location. So that's about it for
Okay.
me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See one other hand from Heather Loneker. Heather, you're on.
Hi, everyone. Heather Loneker, 10 Washington Street, speaking on behalf of the Arts Committee. Thank you for the concerns that were expressed for by the public. The reason Ben brought this to you is just so you have visibility. The village itself is not able to get any more monies from Saratoga Arts because we've capped out at $5,000 for what we can get from them regarding arts projects in the village. However, the BACC has generously offered to sponsor us so the Arts Committee could get some much needed funding for a few projects that are in the works. Regarding what was said about the planters before, there was absolutely nothing in the works about them. So I'm not sure what the concerns are there. That hasn't been brought to the board at all. It seems to be public rumor. But we just wanted you to see that we were hoping to request that small amount of money from Saratoga Arts using the BACC as our sponsor. And we would certainly, the time frame is short. It needs to be in by the end of this week. It was just put out recently and we just became aware of it. So we just wanted you to have visibility and we would certainly let you know what the project was and you can approve or deny at that time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Loneker. I see one other hand and then we're going to call it quits for the night. Adam Woodard.
Hi, this is Adam Woodard from 48 West Street. And I'll just quick comment similar to Rick's comment on the speeding issue. Appreciate you guys following up on that. One other just suggestion as far as the speeding cameras idea that I had mentioned last week. There are New York State grants out there. I haven't done a ton of research. I don't know the applicability, but I know Liz has some familiarity with grants. So it might be something worth looking at as well to see if we could get state funding toward a more robust speed enforcement system in the village. That's it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very
Something
much.
actually the town of Ballston is exploring. We might see what they're doing.
All right, at this point, I'm going to end public comment and ask for a motion that vouchers number 21-01323 to 21-02057 be audited and the meeting adjourned.
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
Motion by trustee Raymond, second by trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Have a nice Memorial Day.
Motion is carried and the meeting is adjourned.
okay.
Thank you to the 18 members of the public who were with us tonight, and we'll see everybody next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
night, everybody.